And we're live.
And we're live.
Welcome to OnEducation Chat. I'm Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glenn Irvin. Mike, you're looking really amazing.
Thank you. I have grown hair.
And Diana has joined us in this awkward conversation between the new Mike and myself here. That is so awesome.
Oh, so how is everyone this
Yeah.
new week of 2020?
How are you,
Yeah.
Diana?
I saw a meme today of, waking up in the morning going, oh, which version of or which chapter of Revelations will we be seeing today?
Yes.
Like, amen.
Yes. And in
It's-
our part of the United States, they're doing some news stories about cicadas. So it's like a locust, and agree. What chapter of Revelations is that?
Oh my God.
The plagues.
So those are the 17-year cicadas that are coming out then.
Just to top it all off.
Yes.
We don't have enough things.
We haven't had enough the past 2 months.
And it just seems like the last few days have been just escalating, like everything nationwide. I didn't think that it could actually reach a higher point, but man, we've surpassed it many times over as we continue to go down this crazy path. All kinds of stuff happening, and what's crazy is you can never predict. Obviously, anything happens anywhere as far as in the United States, right? But in a city like Minneapolis, anyone's ever been to Minneapolis and knows anything about it, just I would say that you would say, nah, that wouldn't be the place where I would think that the center of the nation's attention is
Right
actually
now.
at. But
Yeah.
it is, and it
Yeah.
is tumultuous, and it's still very, very much on fire, literally.
Yep.
And it's crazy. I mean, it's so hard also to try to figure out, like, what can we do? That's what I was just thinking about today. I saw all these different tweets about saying, hey, as educators, we need to stand up and we need to show our voices are behind our colleagues and our students and our parents of African-American students, or any of our students of color. But I just try to figure out myself, I'm like, I don't even know how I could even add anything potentially positive to this conversation. And maybe that's it. That's kind of where I'm at. And I want to be able to do whatever I can to support the movement and what people are protesting about. But is it difficult for you guys too? I mean, as far as to try to find that, and then I'm afraid, literally, I am afraid, and maybe I shouldn't be, but I am, I'll just admit it, of just putting something out there that could be misconstrued, or I'd say something stupid, because I honestly don't know what to actually say that would add a positive note to something, except that I support, obviously, the movement and what's happening, and I empathize, but I don't, it's where you're just feeling kind of basically speechless, which is very uncommon for me. But I don't want to say something that could be misconstrued or something stupid. Basically, that's a good way of putting it. How about you guys?
I'm very much the same. I don't know what to say, because I don't feel like I have enough of the background, I guess, to contribute to the conversation. And maybe that's my own fault, that I haven't inserted myself into being more knowledgeable about social justice and the classroom. But I know I saw a tweet gosh, and it was several days ago, of a fellow teacher on Twitter, and just one of the most genuinely kind, caring teachers out there. I mean, such a far better person than me. And she was upset because she had some negativity pushed back on her at Twitter. And at first I didn't
Yeah.
know why. I just said, you know what, who's there for kids? You are, because you are amazing. Not just on Twitter. I mean, I know from real life she's amazing.
Yes.
And her response was, this happens every time I post about race.
Ugh, that's what I'm talking about.
And that it's, it's so hard to, it takes so much bravery and courage.
Hmm.
And I think, and that's not an excuse, because that's just, I'm the scaredy cat lion sometimes, of making the effort to post stuff and be vocal and knowing that someone might shoot you down.
Hmm. What do you think, Diana?
You're right on par. Not to take away from the incident that's happening right now in Minneapolis for sure, but did you see how Kentucky started the week out, where someone hung a dummy, like a scarecrow kind of thing, from a tree at our Capitol, hung him in effigy with a sign on it that were the words that John Wilkes Booth uttered many years ago. And so our governor addressed the Commonwealth on Monday and talked very honestly about what had happened on Sunday afternoon at the Capitol. And I got online and I was talking with some people, and I'm like, I just am so angry about this. I want to do something. But I don't know what to do. And it's kind of the same situation. I don't know what to do, or what a difference I can make. But it's just angers me so much that there's so much hate everywhere with everything that's going on. And I think we're all at a loss of how to help.
Yes. And I just feel that I don't even think this feels like the beginning.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. It's kind of like the virus, where you knew that there was going to be a surge, and there was going to be a lot of people that were going to die, that are still going to continue to die. But it felt like all the entire time, like we were just talking about the beginning of it, and we had even said that there's been many moments, as far as obviously in United States history, even in just the civil rights, since the civil rights movement to now. And this feels like that moment, and you guys know these moments well, like in the 90s. I don't know if you remember, but the LA riots, Rodney King, and there was this feeling that everyone knew around the country that things were about to get really bad before we could start healing, and things actually start feeling like, yeah, we can get past this moment. We can learn from it. We all are better people.
Right.
And I don't know, and maybe I'm an idiot for thinking this or whatever it might be, but there was moments inside of the Obama presidency where I felt like we have made a huge strides as people. And I felt like our young people, the people in my classrooms, had changed in a positive way. Like there was some things happening that I had never seen before in a positive light, both acceptance, empathy, the willingness to listen out ideas, and I was like, something is actually, we are changing. And and then that wasn't actually true. It was just my perception of where I was living in my little tiny bubble of whatever it was. But I just think there's a lot of people hurting, and when you hurt, it's easy to be afraid. It's easy to then hate. It's easier to throw out hate or visceral, whatever it might be. And it's hard for us to be able to live and communicate with each other. And then as educators, we're put in this position of we are trying to do the best that we possibly can and living in this tumultuous time. Just insane. I like I said, I usually at a loss for words, and then I don't know what would be a positive thing that I could bring to, except to say, yes, I support you. And actually, I've seen a lot of different posts, and probably you guys have too, where I've just basically retweeted and liked, obviously, their tweets, because their words are way more powerful than anything I could ever say. So yeah, I mean, if
Well,
someone was, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say my children are grown. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, and I'm so proud of them. My daughter just moved back to Kentucky. They live in New York City. My son still lives in New York City, but my daughter just moved back to Kentucky. And she posted today online her sentiments, and she did so eloquently and so adult-like. I'm like,
Awesome.
okay, so I'm just going to like that right there, just love that and let it go, because she's speaking for all of us. And I was so proud of
Yes.
her for doing that.
Hey, that's called, that's your children. That the best representation of what you could have actually done as far as
Yeah.
raising your children, and for them to like you said, post eloquently and
Yeah.
yeah, put it in the best words, basically.
Right.
Yes.
And I would say the same. I'm seeing my students doing that on Facebook, like the older ones who have been out for a few years,
Yes.
because the young ones who just graduated, most of them aren't on Facebook. But it's been really great seeing some of the stuff they're posting, and then
Mm-hmm.
they go and they defend their post when someone else tries to argue them down.
Yes.
And I mean, just that little part inside of me of going, yes, good for you for standing up for what you believe in, even if it's unpopular among some of the older people around you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I as I was thinking about this chat here, I was like, well, we got to start with that because
Absolutely.
that's
I
at the
thought
top
about
of
you
our
today
minds.
when I saw all that chaos. I thought about you, Glenn.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I've some of my friends and colleagues and obviously a lot of people that I know live in Minneapolis, in the
Mm-hmm.
Minneapolis area. And really what I want for all of them is, number one, to make sure that justice is served, and that we can together make strides towards a better world for everybody, not just for some people, but for everyone. And that everyone recognizes that there was a horrible act that is not actually that uncommon, unfortunately. And that sucks that that's the reality of where we're actually at, but it is the truth. And so how do we actually make strides forward? What do we need to do to I wouldn't even just call it like, education of the things. It's really like a you need a heartfelt change. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
really what it is, because you don't just get educated and not feel hate. It's something that truly needs to change inside many of us, because we felt whatever it is that we have felt. I thought that Pete Buttigieg, as he was running for president, many times was talking he did a really good job basically about speaking to the United States as a whole, not just Democrats, but he was talking about these there's a marginalized group of also of white Americans, poor, really poor people. And there's some people that take advantage of the situations that certain people are in and the despair that they have and turn that into something very ugly. Now, that ugliness has unfortunately existed as part of our country from, since the beginning of the formation of this. But I believe that there is a way to be able to basically unify us, and that's kind of what part of the message that I did like about Pete's message was, we need to be unified as a country, not as just like these parties of whatever might be. It's like or races. It's we all need to work together towards the common good of all of us, and And I just feel like we still have a super long ways to go there. It's it doesn't feel
Absolutely.
like
It's
we're
like 2 steps forward and 18 steps back.
yes. That's a great point. That's a really, really good point.
And I mean, really, we've been talking about this question because we've known. I'm just going to put this question on
Yeah.
the screen for everyone who needs to see the questions because, I'm that visual type of person. And of course, we've been talking about this the whole time, but I think we're really segueing into not just our personal reactions to this, but narrowing down to what are our responsibilities as educators
Mm-hmm.
moving into. I mean, i could I could say this fall, but I some
So
people
much
even said
uncertainty.
this, but some people even this summer asking,
Yes.
hey teachers, have you reached out to your students of color? um, how are they doing? Have you checked in with them? And yeah, and I don't know it, of course that's just a huge question, and it's not just George Floyd, but Amy Cooper and um, Breonna Taylor.
That's right
Yeah.
outside my
And,
down the road from us. Yeah.
there have been so many incidents lately, and really you could go list on and on and on. It's not as if they're out of the ordinary, and that's the problem.
Right.
Yeah. So what do we do as educators? I think that, I mean, the biggest thing, that's the thing I'm finding myself at right now. And I think someone else put this on Twitter, which was a really good point, is I'm finding myself listening more than wanting to go ahead and speak. By listening, as far as the proverbial thing, as far as on Twitter, reading more
Right.
and understanding more and listening to the viewpoints of those things that I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need to learn more. And then also literally, I actually would like to have conversations with our teachers of color or our administrators of color to come in and basically say, what are some things that we can do that are action steps? Because that's what I would like to know. Like, what can we do as educators, and then as administrators and as systems that we can do in our educational systems, let's call them, that actually are action steps. It's not about like what you say. In the end, it's like, what do we do to make things change, and can those changes occur? Obviously, starting with our educational systems, and then obviously branching out from wherever it might be. Um, so that's the biggest thing. Is I really have a lot of questions, and I really want to make sure that I learn, but I don't know. I don't know enough to where I want to actually go ahead and say, this is what it should be, how we should lead forward. It's like, no, I don't know, but I want to learn.
I would say the same, and actually, um,
She
when
picks
you
up her
guys
book.
were mocking me earlier before we started streaming,
Yeah.
one of the things that I was grabbing was this book has been sitting on my desk for many months.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one that was recommended to me in one of my classes. And I don't remember if it was this fall or earlier this winter. Um, but it seems like an apt time to read it. So when
Yeah.
everything started happening this week, I thought, when I go up to the school to live stream on Friday night, I need to
Grab it.
grab this. Um,
Yeah. I,
oh,
I, I
go
think
ahead.
that is something that we can do. Is, like I just said, I want to be able to get more educated. I want to be able to know what are the action steps, what are the things that we can do, as an instructional coach that I am, with my fellow educators, as we develop professional development, as we create professional development for the fall. What are the things we need to make sure that we include in those things? I think we talk about in Minnesota cultural responsiveness. Something like that is one of our
Mm-hmm.
things for our licensure. What does that actually mean, and how can we make it apply? Something that we can apply in our classrooms, like on an everyday basis or whatever it might be that we can do. Because, like I said, I think a lot of us are just, we don't know, like, what is it that we can do? You know what I mean? Like, and so I think that we're looking for it, but we don't know kind of what that next step is. And I see that Mayor has an awesome book list that Mike put on here. That's it.
But, you know, and a really good point that Mike is making indirectly here that he doesn't realize he's making, or at least for me, follow some really great teachers of color on Facebook, not or on Twitter. And not that Mara is not a teacher of color, but she's definitely an advocate and a great person to follow. But there are some other really, really great ones. Mr. Gilson is definitely one that I follow and read very carefully when he tweets about race and equity.
Ken Shelton, do you follow him? He's another good one. Yeah,
another good recommendation.
Yep.
Yes, and we had Ken on the show, and I really felt that on a lot of the hard topics that we asked him questions about, you know, it's like, and I felt like they're hard for us to ask Ken Shelton about, but he came from a perspective of, here's where you're at. This is where you are. And he's not talking about us in general, but just when he speaks to someone, and it's like, I understand like where you're at, but let me bring you to this other place, this other perspective. And it's amazing. And that's why he's such a great educator, a great speaker, a great, leader as far as in the educational field, and someone obviously that we can be listening to, especially during these times. So, and I think there's a lot of those voices, and they're often, ignored or put on the side or whatever it might be, as far as the thing goes. But we have a lot of learning to do, and we don't. And I'll be honest, I don't have many answers. Someone I think put something about Glenn will help you with whatever. It's like I only have my perspectives and my experiences to be able to draw from, and none of them can fit this specific scenario. So I need to learn more.
Well, I grew up in a county in my state that is predominantly white. There were only two students of color when I went to high school, and one of them has become an author, and she's actually pretty famous. She's won several Appalachian contests or writer contests. Anyway, when she published her first book, she and I weren't friends in high school. I mean, I admire her so much now, but I've bought every book that she wrote, and I've read them all. But the insight that she provided to me as an adult reading that book that I did not have as a high schooler going to school with her, but now I have as an adult about her life. It just opened up a lot of my eyes about that. And her name's Crystal Wilkinson. She's on Twitter as well, and she's written 4 books, I believe, 3 or 4 books. And just what you said, if it's not coming to you, you've got to seek it out. You're going to have to learn on your own. Melissa's got her book. Find those people on Twitter that we can learn from.
And Diana, I think you bring up a good point though with that book, and how teachers, and I'm going to aim this more to English language arts teachers, but I think it can stretch out to all humanities, and librarians, media specialists. We need to take a more analytical look at what books we are on the shelves, because I guarantee you in almost every school in America, the books are predominantly white characters. And luckily in the past few years, we've been making strides. And I think especially the past 2 or 3 years, especially with sexual orientation, has really taken off. But that's like saying they've grown from here to here. And but we as teachers need to make sure that our students are represented in the materials that they're
We
reading.
select. Correct.
Yes.
Same thing in the curriculum. If
Mhm.
American literature curriculum that is traditionally taught to 11th graders, if we're looking at that and we see Benjamin Franklin and Nathaniel Hawthorne, and everything is white males with a few Native American myths and maybe a Booker T. Washington text thrown in to be multicultural, again, we're saying that this is the norm to follow,
Right.
that this is what is accepted, and we're in hopefully not intentionally sending that message, but that is the message that we are sending by teaching
Mhm.
that canon. And I think that can be said with other humanities areas too. If in art class we are only teaching Picasso and Van Gogh and European artists, we're sending that same message.
Mhm.
I think it's just something that is one of the action steps too, what you're describing there. And I know that there is a huge movement towards basically making sure that the literature that we are exposing our students to is representative of our students. The other part that I was thinking about too is that our teachers become representative of the students that we have in our classrooms by proportions. That's what I mean. And unfortunately, that is not anywhere near the case. I would say in the city of Minneapolis, for example, this incident happened there, but there is not enough representation of people of color that are actual teachers of the many students that we have in our classes. So that also doesn't feel right. And not
Right.
only doesn't it feel right, it's called there's a negative perception there then too. If you can't see, like, you see your educator is like you, representative of you, and you don't see any educators that look like you,
Yep.
that is not good. Especially now, like we could be having this conversation in 1992, when I
Yep.
was like a sophomore in high school, but this is 2020 now. I'm like going to be 45 years old. It's 20. I mean, we've gone, it's not even the year 2000 anymore. I remember that. It's like 20 years down the road of that. I have to believe, though, and I'm a positive person, that we've grown a lot, even though we see these things are super magnified, incidences like this, which I'm glad that they are, that we get to call them out. Like someone said, this happened all the time, but now we actually are able to record it instantly, and we see these things more often. But I actually think that in general, worldwide, let's just talk about United States in general, that we have grown as a people. It's just that unfortunately the way that we communicate at this moment in time is very it's very negative. I mean, and a lot of the communications that take place, especially in the social media platforms, are of a negative, line. There's way more negative than positive, and Mike could tell you, they sell much more of whatever they want to sell by going negative, and
Absolutely.
that sucks. But I want to believe that in general, we have grown as a people. That we can not only get past these moments, we can learn from these moments, because we're not going to get past it. We're going to learn from these moments and grow as people, and our leaders will grow, and the people that we elect will grow, and us as educators and our students. Um, I believe that, as far as Americans and the educational system. I have to believe that, otherwise it'd be very devastating and sad.
It'd be
Sad
very
way to begin the
depressing.
summer. Yes, very
It'd be
sad way
very
to begin the
depressing
summer.
if we didn't have a positive spin and know that we can do better.
Yes,
Well, and I
yes,
think in a way, even though social media is negative and drives me insane, but I also think that this puts those events in our laps a little bit more. Because
yes.
now I'm thinking back to when Glenn and I would have been in high school, and, remember very vividly the OJ Simpson case. And that always felt like something that was happening far, far away.
Right.
Yes.
That wasn't happening here. And I think social media puts that in our laps
Now. Yeah.
because
That's true.
there are people who we know who are connected to it, and
Right.
we are hearing from them. We can't just say it's happening over
It's
there.
somewhere
It's not part
else.
of my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Very, very accurate.
Good
there.
point.
Yes.
All right.
So what else has been happening out in the
Shall we move to our next question? Are you guys ready for even more?
Yes.
I'm trying to kill an ant. I just saw an ant and I'm trying to find it. So I think it went under my computer.
In case people are wondering. Yeah. Dang ant.
Oh, okay.
What do you got? Oh gosh. Here we go.
One thing we're gonna save like the happier stuff for the end.
For the
I
end.
told,
Yeah,
I
let's do
told
that.
you
Let's do
guys,
that.
make sure you got happy stuff for the end because we definitely need it.
Yes.
So this, of course, came up in a Twitter really fiasco yesterday, where Alice Keeler is promoting her work via face masks with her, I guess, logo
Insignia.
and the
And her
website
name.
on them.
Yep.
And anybody who subscribes to her newsletter could then have a free face mask. And there were a few who were appreciative. There was a lot of blowback from it as well, especially yesterday. Still some today. I guess, what were your reactions and what branded face masks is?
Well, I will say that we branded some face masks in our school for fall. We have a very active family and consumer science program, and they run their own merchandising program where they buy and or they create and then sell items. And so they sold some mask with our school logo on it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all over Twitter, and it wasn't.
No.
It was just they were doing it for the students to be able to help them look uniform, or if they wanted it, and also help their merchandising business. So
sure. And
I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah. No, and I can see that. Like some people were saying, hey, there's some sports teams doing this, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Here's my big difference between any of these things is for your school, that's a like it's like I'm wearing this shirt
Right.
from our sock rappers thing where like we're all in this together. It's a way of unifying the student body, the school and the community, and making sure that everyone knows that, hey, we're doing this. It has the insignia, whatever it might be, but you're part of us. We're part of a group. And that actually happens a lot too. And Melissa, you have kids who are big athletes also. And so, kind of this culture of sports. We've talked about, sports in general, where that actually is a great thing. And it's a great thing that is in the United States is part of us is kind of finding that unifying factor. We may come from all kinds of different situations, whatever it might be, but we all unify. We're Vikings fans, for example, whatever it might be. And it feels like that can be a way to unify a group of people, in a time when nothing feels good, unfortunately.
Right.
Now, if in this case, it's just strange more than anything else. That's how I felt about it. When I looked at it, I saw the reaction. I was like, geez, this is getting really bad really fast. I just thought it was weird to not, as someone put on there and did a good job. Basically, they said something to the effect of, did you think through this? As far as like how this could look, how this might look on this day, these days now. 100,000 people were just announced that have already died. It's just not a good. There probably was never a good time to do this, but definitely not now. And then for the purpose of becoming part of a mailing list, as far as getting this thing and you sign up for the mailing list, which in in her world, getting part of a mailing list is actually collecting information to potentially you are now going to be a customer. I mean, we're going to just
Mhm.
be honest with that. The way that it works, as far as whether it would be someone that's in the education world, that's someone with 200,000 followers there, or someone that is a Instagram celebrity, those numbers of followers, a company attaches that so that they know that that is your influence factor, and then they will be able to pay you so that you promote their products. Even when we are doing OnEducation, we have a specific number of listeners. And when a company comes to us, we're honest. We're like, yeah, we have this many listeners. We will promote X product to our customers, and those things. So to say number one, I mean, there was a lot of bad things that were said as far as
Yeah.
the follow-ups by Alice were horrible too. That's the part that's really bad. I mean, it was bad initially, but then it got worse. So if you would have said, "Hey, I'm just doing this," so someone gave them. Obviously, she said someone had given them to her, had made them for her, and then she was giving them away in exchange for your information, basically. And we all know that's it. Diana, you work in technology and
Mhm.
education, ed tech. We know that it's pretty sacred. Information is now sacred, as far
Yes.
as we don't want to give away information now. We actually are teaching our kids to not just give
Not.
away your stuff
Mhm.
because it has value. There's a monetary value to it, and companies know this. So however she wanted to talk around the topic itself, it was for a monetary purpose in the end. You know, though she did follow it up with one of the most horrible follow-up tweets I have ever seen in my life, and that
Did I
got
saw it.
even more
I don't think I
reaction.
saw that.
That was the one she put on there. Don't you know I have a bunch of fans?
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah, 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 yeah. I read
And it
about
was
that
like,
from another tweet. Yeah.
that's just not the good follow. You're already in a hole. That was just not a good. How am I hurting you? That's what something to the effect of. And it's called. It's just not a good. It's not a good time, obviously, to promote that. The product itself is personal protection equipment. Basically that things that we're trying to go ahead and wear to protect ourselves and to make it about a profit. Oof. That there was so many things there, and I just felt like I felt more uncomfortable. That I wasn't enraged or anything. I was just like, oh gosh, that feels
I
not
that
good.
Yeah, it was like you can't it just didn't feel right when I first saw it, but yeah, I wasn't offended. It was just like, mm. And then someone pointed out, well, what about the companies that give out conference bags? And I was like, yeah, but I don't carry conference bags around my classroom, or I I can't explain why it's not the same, but it's not the same. And
What if the mask had we're all in this together on it?
Yes, yes, and she didn't collect
yes.
information too,
Right.
because in her world, and anybody that's in any really social media marketing world, collecting information equals the possibility of being able to get sponsorships
Right.
and basically monies. So that's obvious. I mean, as far as that goes, and you're right. It was just straight. And here's the difference, though, Melissa. I can see those bags that they gave away at conferences. They weren't to protect us from a deadly virus that has killed 100,000 people since February. That that would be the biggest difference. This is not a toy or a pen with Alice Keeler's little insignia. This is the protective equipment that we're using to be able to go in and keep ourselves safe
Safe.
and keep each other safe. So it feels like it is a really
Yeah.
serious issue that was used to do this marketing, kind of thing. And though someone may have made it for her, I don't have any reason to not believe that someone did that, and then she was just going to give them away. Very possible that actually it still feels like okay, I should have given them away on the down low. Like I see them and I'm looking at them
Yeah.
like, oh, these are super cool. They look neat. Even though I'm really tempted to put one of these on and like take a picture and do this whole thing, it's like I'm tempted because it's like this, you know, obviously I could, it'll drive some stuff, you know, it'll, you know, some likes and some retweets, whatever it might be. It's like, nah, I really shouldn't. There should have been something that struck a chord where you're like, I can't do this. It's feeling, this is not the right time to do this. And I don't know if there would ever be a right time when we're talking about people dying, you know.
Right.
So yeah, that went down
That went,
like a ball of flames yesterday, and my goodness.
and like you said, if she would just apologize, because I mean, we've all made those
Yes.
kind of mistakes before, where we're like, oh, we did not think that through.
Yes.
Completely understand. We're human, and I think we need to remember Alice is, human too, and she's trying her best. But this is just like, I just didn't think that through.
Yeah.
You
that was
are
it.
right. If anybody wants a face mask, let me know, and I'll get someone out to you.
I actually saw yesterday, and I don't know if too many other people saw it, but I'm not going to put the person's name, but it was another person with 100,000 of followers, right?
Mhm.
They also did something yesterday or the day before yesterday, early in the morning, and put something out that immediately received some negative feedback. And it was based on, again, the virus. It was kind of a promotional thing, right? It was like kind of promotional thing. Some people took offense to it, and the person immediately took it down,
Took it down.
retweeted their original thing, kind of put it so that they could show that they're not hiding it, but they
That
put
they
it there.
messed up. Right.
They said, hey, you know what? I wasn't trying to offend anybody. I thought it would be, it was gimmicky and it was whatever it might be, and I was wrong.
Right.
I shouldn't have actually done that, and I apologize to anybody that I offended and things. I'm learning here,
Mm-hmm.
and next time I do anything, I will for sure be thinking through kind of what is the perception of whatever it is, and guess what? Nobody's even talking about that because it immediately reset it. Everybody can move on and it could be like, oh, yep. Because again, we all make mistakes and we all do things where it's like, oh, that probably wasn't. It wasn't what I meant to do. Basically, you could say that, and I apologize, and I'm going to learn from this, and let's move on. Let's move forward with this. Yeah.
One of my, on that, as we're wrapping this up, one of my former students, when I was teaching journalism, he graduated, I think it was 2017. And he did that exact same thing today. He put out a tweet this morning that all lives matter.
Yeah.
And it got a lot of negativity. So he did the same thing. He took it down. He then retweeted it, but at the top had a disclaimer that it said, I am so sorry. I didn't realize, that I was being disrespectful to the African American community. It was just, I'm like, oh yes, you learned. Yay. So good for you. So you're
Absolutely.
right. Just admit your mistake and show everybody that you're human.
Exactly. Well, you got any positive stuff to talk about?
Well, let's move on to something a little bit more fun. And this is your favorite quote, or I shouldn't say favorite quote, but a quote that you had on this week's episode. Digital summits. If we build them, will they come? And along with that, are you guys going to any digital summits? What's the plan for the summer? And should OnEducation build its own summit someday?
I actually signed up for one today, and then I skipped out on every session because it was about, the whole topic was, it was awesome. And if I were not retiring, I would have hung in there and gone to all the sessions I signed up for because it was free. But the sessions were really about preparing for next year and, getting classrooms ready and all that. And I'm not going to be doing that. And I had some other things I needed to work on. So I thought, I'm just going to skip out. But I do think that like Glenn said, if we build it, I think they would come.
Yeah. I'm interested in that, in knowing how people are feeling about doing some professional development this summer on their own, in their own living room, in their own bedroom, whatever it might be, being able to attend those sessions, get some learning from I mean, there's some people that are presenting for free that you would have to pay basically thousands of dollars to be able to attend ISTE, for example, or whatever
Right.
else might be
Mhm.
the different conferences. And you don't have to do that. It makes me always, in the back of my mind, I always think about, though, there's a lot of people who already got burned out by this. There's no doubt why. I mean, this is
They need a break.
crazy. This is crazy. It's unprecedented. I think they may need a break from these screens,
Yes.
from the screens themselves. I think
Yep.
they weren't prepared for it. They weren't used to this. This is not the world that they live in. And they truly were like, some educators, some teachers actually gave their laptops back today, because today was like
Oh,
our final laptop
Okay.
turn-in day for our school. And there was some thoughts like that, like, here I have everything there. I need to actually
take a break.
separate myself physically from this, because I just think it was just not, not for them.
Mhm.
But I think after a little bit of time, you have a couple of weeks and you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah. I need something to
I'm
do.
I'm ready to
I'm
go
ready.
ahead,
I'm
attend a
ready.
few sessions, and I
Hmm.
have this opportunity to be able to learn about game-based learning, or
Right.
we have to learn about leadership, or the topics that we just finished talking about. Like, how do we do the best job we can for our students of color, and just all of our students in general, with
Right.
these topics that are so difficult to talk about? I actually want to learn more about like that. And I'm hoping that there are some sessions like those types of things, whoever might be offering that. My question was to Mike, though, is like, if you actually do have these virtual conferences, compared to a normal ISTE, which would, attract 20,000 educators, right? How many people will actually attend? And that's what I'm like, but see, Aud- Audrey just
Yeah.
posted something
Audrey
there. Go ahead
just
and read
said
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. She
Which, I
said,
mean, granted, Minnesota teachers had that, I believe they had that Friday and Monday off.
mhm,
So, or not off, but kind of dedicated to
professional
training,
development.
all
Yep.
of
Hmm.
that. And this, we just happened to plan that serendipitously right with those 2 days. So I think probably a lot of the numbers came from Minnesota teachers, but we had numbers from all around the world.
Everywhere in the world. Yes.
Yep,
People all
that's
over
it.
the world. Yep. Were
Hmm.
attending. And I think people were tuning in, even though it was kind of like, when did that happen? It was at the beginning of May. This
The
was,
first,
yeah.
it was May 1st and 4th. It
Yes.
was May Day.
So if we see the, most of us started in March sometime, as
Yeah.
far as in distance learning or online learning. And then this was already basically a month and a half down the road. I think a lot of people were trying to learn, okay, now what can I do? Not
Next
the rest of
to,
this year,
to finish. Hmm.
but then also, like, in the future, what
Right.
else could I actually be doing to be able to go and fill in these things? And now, without being able to go to all these conferences, there's a lot of us who are like so sad that are
Yes.
used to going to a lot of conferences. And now it's like, oh, it's going to hit me in July. I know too. I'm going to be like sad. I'm going to be like, yeah, there's like all these things that we could have been. Yeah. But will we find that we have participants that are willing to come? And actually, because I think Steve Isaac said something to this effect on somewhere on Twitter, and he had a great point. He believes that people will come to these, and even people that normally wouldn't have gone to those conferences because of the financial um, burdens
Barriers.
and
Right.
the financial barriers. Because now we can just basically run these things and just do them for free.
Right.
I mean, we can get, I mean, as far as, you might need a couple of things to be able that you might need actual, money for a platform like this, like StreamYard or whatever it might be. But you could find just a sponsor that would be willing to go ahead and, pay for whatever it is. And I know you guys ran it through the
We ran it
Department of
on
Edu
Zoom.
on Zoom, right?
Yeah, Dave
Yes.
Blanchard Zoom.
It was his
Literally,
Zoom,
that's how
his
we did it.
personal Zoom, and you ran it. The Department of Education, this whole conference, you guys rocked it. Yes, off his Zoom.
But
And
Audrey has a good point.
Yeah.
Audrey has a good point. She said that the great thing was we posted sessions on YouTube, so the views after the session were huge because that way you make
That's a
you make
great
it
point.
flexible for people who can't sit in that very 45-minute time slot. But if you make it
Yes.
available after the fact, you're still serving that same purpose.
And that doesn't happen. If anybody doesn't know this, I don't know how many people tune in or whatever it might be that don't know that at ISTE, a lot of the stuff is like held by the ISTE organization.
Right.
And it's not distributed out because they put it on their platforms. You know, they do. So they're not like broadcasting some of the stuff. So you might not be able to see many of the sessions unless someone personally records it. So yeah, this is a great point, Audrey, that not only could you do it live and people attend and they come then, but then afterwards you have this whole bank of all of these amazing speakers and all of these amazing ideas that are shared. You know, probably I would imagine that most of these things are going to be for free. You know, that people are going to be putting these things for free.
We actually do this in Kentucky. You'll have to look it up after our broadcast. It's called KY Digital, and KY Go Digital. And we've been doing that for probably 2 years, and it's like once a month, and there are principals or counselors. They do different sessions, but they put them all on YouTube. So if you can't sit during the regular school day and watch it, you can always go back and watch it. And they're having a big one this summer. I don't know if I've already missed it or if it's coming up, but yeah, I think people will participate simply because of that financial barrier for actually going to a conference.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to have finances next year to do anything.
No, but and that does resolve so much of the equity, because for those of us teachers who do go to those conferences, it's because we either have a 2-income family,
right,
or we've been at this teaching gig long enough that we have enough salary to make it happen, or we have some ways to make it happen. A lot of newer teachers or teachers who live in the urban areas where the cost of living is just so darn high, they can't get to these conferences.
Or they have small children at home that they can't leave.
Another great point.
Mm-hmm.
Or they have teenagers at home and
that they can't leave.
Why can't probably ever go to FETC until like they all graduate, because
correct.
That's when my husband's at the ranch, and I'm like, well, there's just no way I'm going to be able to leave these 3 alone.
No.
I'm thinking about who are all the people that's, we need to get out on the recruitment trail then and see if we can get some, people that are part of the On Podcast Media Network. And then maybe some of our podcast friends also. I'm calling them friends basically
of the pod.
Former guests.
Well, are you all Leslie Fisher groupies like I am?
I do like Leslie Fisher.
Well, she's been offering these sessions all like since March for free. Yes. I've taken at least one a week.
Wow.
She's gotten some backing by Microsoft and Rocketbook, and I've forgotten who else. Awesome. Because that's how she makes her income. Her livelihood is going to conferences, and with conferences being shut down, she's very fortunate to have some companies to support her. But
that would be awesome.
She has hundreds of people on a Friday night at 7 p.m. watching a virtual webcast. So I think it's doable.
We're making that call.
I think it's doable.
She was supposed to be on the pod before
Leslie was.
Corona hit.
There was a scheduling snafu of some sort, and we ended up not being able to get, because she was on our list, but we're getting her.
I can reach out to her. She signed my Rocketbook. We're like besties.
Oh, so you're besties now.
Yes.
Okay.
She's one I can go sit in a session with her at any time, and always.
She's amazing. Love her.
Yeah. And actually, I was just thinking, during these times, we've gone to all these different conferences, met so many different amazing people, presenters, keynote speakers, and so on and so forth, that I don't think that, I think a lot of people are willing to give an hour of their time and be like, and like you just said, get
Yeah.
onto a Zoom call basically, and,
Yep.
or this platform and go, hey, everyone, I'm going to speak with you for, 45 minutes, answer 15 minutes of questions, follow up with whatever, and then boom, you're all done.
Yep.
So it could work. At first I was doubting it. I was like, yeah, I don't know if people will come, but now you guys are making me think it's maybe a
Well,
possibility.
just keep in mind, if they don't
Yeah.
come at the very exact same time and we still make it available, it still counts.
Exactly, because the views afterwards, the ability to be able to connect with those people afterwards too. Yes. Awesome.
Okay.
It was a great chat.
Yeah, just a few minutes left. So you guys we need to leave with some hoorays. I feel like we did end on a positive note here.
Yeah.
After our very dismal
Start.
very important, but yes, not lighthearted beginning.
Yeah.
So
what are we looking forward to this next week? I am looking forward to not having a chapter of Revelations outside my window. Like,
yes.
I like seriously, planet Earth. Nothing new this week. I don't want any new pandemics.
No floods.
No
hurricanes.
No.
We do not need the 17 years
Your
cicada
locust. No.
us. Just let us be for a week.
Well, I have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
I'm getting a haircut.
Hey.
My hairdresser's back in this coming week and I have an appointment.
That's amazing. That's hilarious too.
Yep, that's fun.
I am excited. My wife's birthday is tomorrow, and we are taking the boys. We are doing the hiking adventure. So go spend some time out in the outdoors, cooking here at the house, but making it special. And we're like, hey, doesn't matter. Can't go out, whatever, but we're gonna make it. You make it special in your house, and then also we have the great outdoors. It's time for us to take advantage of that and go out there and really do those things. We don't need to be, go to certain places. We can wait till it's safe.
Absolutely, because as well as I recall, what you told us about your weather is you have a limited time for warm weather, so you better get outside and take advantage of it.
June through September.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't even want to say that out too loud because it'll be snowing in September. Then no, it's perfect.
Well,
awesome.
Especially this year.
Yes.
This year it'll probably first snow September 15th.
No, it's got to be this year too.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Awesome.
I bought I really hate yard work until this year. And now this year, it's like...
That's what you said.
I don't know. It's like all of a sudden this year, I'm just like... It makes me feel good to go out and do something and be like...
I did
so much better now. Yeah. I feel like I've done something. So I went to Walmart, dear God, and survived.
2 hours away.
2 hours. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So my son got his braces off, so we had to go to the orthodontist office 2 hours away.
That's right.
So I went to Walmart where most people were not recognizing social distancing. And then I bought a hedge trimmer. So I'm really excited this weekend to plug that baby in. And I've got about 6 overgrown lilac trees in my backyard. They're not super overgrown, but getting there. So I'm gonna become
that's not your everyday nature tool. That's a power tool.
That's
a hedge trimmer. That's a great place to start, Melissa.
I thought about getting, the big one, and then I'm like, no. I'm going all out. The $35 hedge trimmer.
Yes.
You have fun.
I will. All right. Yes. And we have one last comment from Miss Audrey.
He did know
he
what he was
did.
talking about.
He did.
Yes. Thank you, Audrey. Thanks for sticking around. Thank you guys.
All right.
It was super fun.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks for a great chat, everyone. And
awesome.
Yeah. Until next Friday. I'm hoping for a much calmer chat next Friday, by the way.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Positive talk next week. It's
hopefully.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Hi, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.